Hello and welcome to my channel. I have another story for you today, which is as usual based on 5 random words. Sorry about the knocking sound. I think somebody might be nailing up a painting or something. Anyway, hopefully it'll stop. So this is an out-and-out science fiction story today. The 5 words, random words, that it is based on are: so the name of the story is The Gargoyles of Rees-11B. 2.9 parsecs out from the Klein-Schmidt wormhole. I begin to regret signing up for this mission. 12 weeks of zero-gravity habituation, followed by 8 months in a suspended animation, whilst the ship slowly spirals into the heart of the pan-dimensional conduit and transports our crew of 4 across the Great Divide and into the heart of the dark Nebula. And that's just the start of it. We are reanimated in time to continue the process of cataloguing the system's scattering of Earth-like worlds, all the while approaching Rees-11B and its willing source of the wonder hormone that the Earth's 50 billion inhabitants now depend upon to have anything like a reasonable quality of life. After 4 more weeks, we near landfall. 3 weeks of milking the gargoyles for their hormone-secreting glands will follow, then another year for the return journey. At the end of it, there will be 6.4 million credits for each of us, enough to last well into retirement. Enough to pay for my children's retirement too, which, due to the horrors of special relativity, will roughly coincide with my own. When you say goodbye to your 28-year-old spouse and twin toddlers, fully in the knowledge that when you next see them, in a little over 2 years, they'll be in their 60s and late 30s respectively, it's a sobering thought. No, strike that. It's a depressing one. We all accept the paradoxes and losses that faster-than-light travel brings, but only I have a wife and children to return to. I'm the outlier here. As a family man, I shouldn't have been allowed to go, but when you know exactly who to bribe, even the most stern of protocols becomes fluid. It takes a good 10 days to recover from a prolonged spell of SA. The experience is something like an endless flu and something like a god-awful hangover, but compared to the horrors of superstorms, overpopulation, mass starvation, rogue genetically engineered superviruses, and civil war raging on Earth, none of us feel any right to complain. The last part of the Sky Survey completed, the nano swarm of AI surveyors safely back on board, Captain Llewellyn Barnett takes us down onto a quiet patch of savanna on the largest landmass on Rees-11B, colloquially called New Europe. As soon as we step out of the ship, Captain Barnett, Chief Surveyor Olu Adebayo, Lieutenant Karen Simmons and myself, Lieutenant Alex Donovan, we are mobbed by the cackling giant feathered gargoyles who always seem to want to nuzzle our elbows and lead us directly to their nesting spot. Halfway between vultures and gibbons, these creatures seem dumber than dodos and are by far the largest megafauna anyone has seen on the minimalist ecosystem of Rees-11B. Daft fuckers seem to want to be harvested, mutters Simmons, and not for the first time. I shrug. Better that than we have to hunt them down. We take out our deglanders and begin the harvest. You locate the little flap between the creature's shoulder blades to insert the device into. We've been told it's a painless operation and doesn't harm the gargoyles in any way. And yet, after each tiny click and vacuum pulse indicating a successful procedure, something seems to vanish from the harvested one's eyes. All 12 eyes seem to glaze over, and the gargoyle will turn and half march, half roll away into the forest. We tag all those we harvest, so we know which ones still have glands, and yet, apparently in 17 trips, nobody has yet seen a tagged gargoyle return to the herd. I have a sneaking suspicion that, like an elephant that knows it's close to death, they make their way to a sacred spot and quietly starve. I have no idea where I get this morbid notion from. I once mentioned it to Simmons and she called me a morbid fucker, and that was that. Simmons is a pragmatist. Now Simmons turns to me, her gland pouch nearly full. Already the herd is thinning, and we have only oxygen in our guild packs for 12 more minutes. Simmons winks. Want to try one? She's holding out one of the gently oozing glands, the pale pink fluid running between the fingers of her exosuit. "We're not supposed to," I begin, but Simmons has already upturned her gland and dribbled fluid into her waiting mouth. Her eyes seem to gleam vividly bright, and she throws her arms around me. Normally a rather cold and clinical person, this is a peculiar thing for her to do. She whispers in my ear, "Live a little. I want you to be happy." Happy is something I sincerely miss being. So I do as she asks, feeling the sweet, sticky fluid seeping through the flesh of my mouth, numbing everything. Everything except my mind, which sparks into life with a firework display of what I can only describe as joyous empathy. Simmons is suddenly the most beautiful, witty, smart and delightful person I've ever seen, although I note that I feel nothing remotely sexual. The Gargoyles, no, let's give them their scientific name, Avincimia ricea, are gloriously funny and wonderful beings. The herd is dwindling to a handful now, and I love them all. I love Simmons' flame-red hair and wild recklessness, Barnett's oval eyes and finicky nature, Adebayo's sharp jaw and taciturn thoroughness. I love the creatures' placid adoration of us, their vividly blue-green plumage and comic perambulations. But then another note blossoms, a flower of doubt, no, of distant pain and fear. Somewhere in the forest, something bad is happening. Simmons runs for the trees, desperate to love and save the pained creatures within. I follow her as Barnett bellows in my earpiece, unheeded. We stumble upon a scene of horrific carnage. Deprived of their empathic glands, the gargoyles in the forest aren't quietly dying. They are ripping one another's throats out and stabbing each other in their beautiful tear-shaped eyes. Blood-purpled clumps of torn-out hair is everywhere, matted with viscera, as the bewildered, screeching animals murder one another. Feathers drift in a snow-like haze across the twin setting suns. The pain of it, which we too feel, reduces Simmons and I to blubbering wrecks, and we stay that way for over 2 hours until the hormone wears off, and we are rescued, carried back on board, and summoned to Barnett's study. She is furious, something I've never seen before. "What you've done is a court-martialable offence," she says, almost shaking with anger. Trails of empathy cow us. Simmons and I both feel Barnett's fear and, yes, a note of shame in our superior. She now knows the evil we do here. "It would be kinder to shoot them," Simmons says quietly. We're confined to our quarters until stasis is due to start, but Simmons and I chat on an unregulated channel and formulate a plan. A nuclear detonation of sufficient force could disrupt the wormhole, redirecting it away from this paraverse. Sure, it will kill all 4 of us, but it will spare a million-strong alien race from needless self-slaughter. What are we really returning to anyway? A teeming planet hanging on to a diminishing strip of only just inhabitable desert, surviving on rice and algae derivatives, enduring mass extinctions and the silting and salination of the seas. Sure, Earth can drug itself into full contentment with the re-engineered gland juices of Rees-11B. Humanity's blind addiction to its self-deception might prolong the human race a few more centuries, but if we can't get off-world before ecological collapse kills us all, what's the point? We never colonized Mars or Europa. We tried, but those were failed, noble dreams. We might as well face up to what we've done. Ignorance may be bliss, but it's also idiocy. Simmons signs off with a promise. In 3 weeks, she'll blow the main reactor while I nudge our course towards the wormhole wall. By the time anyone notices the patch I've installed in the navigation system, it will be too late to fix it. We'll be vilified back home, of course, and nobody will ever call us heroes. Worse than that, my family will assume I developed a psychiatric disorder. Whether Space Corps life insurance pays out for temporary insanity is a moot point. I'll finish this journal entry, beam it off towards Earth for the benefit of posterity, though at sub-light speed it won't arrive until hundreds of years after our demise, and begin to write the navigation patch. I can still feel the gargoyles nuzzling at my elbow. The memory makes me smile. There you go. So slightly bleak, that story. I don't know where that came from. The darkest recesses. But when you're handed words like addiction, gargoyle, and dimension, you know you're going to get a very strange story. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, I would love you to share the story, subscribe to the channel, press the little bell thing so you get notified about new stories appearing, and I'll see you again very soon. Thank you.